New Galaxy Broadcasting proudly presents Integrative Hermetic Health with Hugo Rodier, MD. In this program, we explore a powerful new paradigm for health from the standpoint of integrative medicine. In his practice, Dr. Rodier integrates the ancient Hermetic art and the enduring role of food as medicine with modern nutrition, but also allowing for the wide range of important health practices, including truly valuable medical discoveries, chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathic, and herbal medicine. In this program, Hugo Rodier, an expert in intestinal health and nutrition, will help the audience discover an approach that focuses on actual cures, not the masking of the elegant simplicity of many health solutions for the sake of profit. Profit too long has been an overriding motive of the pharmaceutical companies, and sometimes, sadly, by many in the medical establishment today. Good morning, doctor. How are you doing?
Good morning, Johnny. Doing great.
I think we're both doing great, but I'll bet you, I know a company that's not doing great, and that's called Dean Food, which is America's largest milk producer, or has been for so many years, like 94 years. It's been really, really famous and successful, but recently it's been struggling. Why? According to CNN Business, it is basically because Americans are drinking less cow's milk. In 2019, the company tumbled 7% in the first half of the year and profit fell 14%. Its stock, Dean Foods, DF is the symbol, lost 80% that year. That is not good, right, for a business?
No, I wouldn't think so.
So it produced things, very famous ones, True Moo, Dairy Pure, and Land O'Lakes milks, and it has blamed its struggles, according to this article, on the accelerated decline in the conventional white milk category. It also has distributed some milk for Organic Valley through a joint venture. But anyway, it owns a lot of recognizable brands. Another one is Dairy Pure. But the company saddled with debt and can't fund anything, couldn't fund its workers' pensions. So it filed for Chapter 11 recently. And it wanted to stay operating for a while. And now it's working with the Dairy Farmers of America Cooperative to maybe sell all of its assets there. And it seems to be moving along. And so they're keeping the company running to an extent. Well, this says to me that something has changed in their culture about milk. And we've talked about the problems with milk, haven't we, Doc?
Repeatedly, and it's a topic worth repeating, because there's always new information about the problems with milk.
You know how you always say that a lot of these problems, they can't be really solved so much by government, but they can be solved by consumer demand.
Yeah, the pocketbook, people vote with their wallet.
Well, I'm going to quote from this. It says, "Once a staple of the American refrigerator, milk has slowly fallen out of favor with consumers as they seek less sugary or plant-based alternatives. The global market for milk alternatives is expected to top $18 billion this year, up 3.5% from 2018, according to Euromonitor. There's still a fraction of the traditional milk market which will come in just under $120 billion globally this year. So sales for cow's milk has been declining for about 4 years. And for the last 52 weeks, the decline was something like $12 billion, according to Nielsen. So that's a pretty extraordinary thing that's happening in world culture, right?
Exactly, and you're right. We need to look at consumers. Why is demand dropping? Interestingly, today the paper had an article on the 30th anniversary of the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia. At the time it was called Czechoslovakia, of course. Now they got 6 different countries in the Balkan Peninsula. But if you recall the Velvet Revolution, people decided to stop consuming, to quit their jobs, to sell their small businesses. And that's how they forced the communist guy to abdicate. And that's so smart, kind of like Gandhi. Instead of a revolution like they're having in France, the Gilets jaunes.
Yeah.
It just makes so much more sense to lay down, if you will. And so that's what I think is happening with milk consumption. But there's another factor, Johnny, that I believe is playing a role. And that is the demographics of America are changing drastically with immigration. Immigration used to be almost exclusively from Europe, and Europeans have better time with milk. They are able to consume it. They're able to digest it well. They don't have lactose intolerance, which non-Caucasians have.
Well, the milk there it's more pure, isn't it? It doesn't have as many additives and different components, hormonal components and things.
No, this is different. All milk, cow's milk, has lactose, the sugar.
No, I understand that. I meant in Europe, do they have less of those problems, like vaccine additives and stuff?
Right, and in Europe, milk is less adulterated, if you will, less additives and growth hormones and antibiotics and pesticides and all that. It's more organic, right? But my point is different.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The demographics of America are changing. We're having less Caucasians and more non-Caucasians immigrate. Some states are two states, New Mexico and I think the other one may be Arizona, are 50%, if not more, non-Caucasians, Mexicans and American Indian, who have more lactose intolerance, as do blacks and Asians.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I got it.
Who are reproducing, having more kids than Caucasians. And so at this rate, it's predicted that Caucasians will be in the minority. So the point being is that these people, the new Americans, do not consume as much milk.
Another point about this whole thing, I think that's very interesting, that the cow's milk is the normal kind of milk is not the only thing that's declining. Also, 1%, 2% skim and fat-free milk sales have declined also. And on the other hand, oat, which we'll get into, oat milk has jumped 636% to 53 million over the past year. So one more further thing is that Walmart dropped Dean's Foods last year, so that was another one of their problems. So it seems like something's happening, something big, something cultural. I want to play something, Doctor. It's a short little description of how something brand called Oatly grew to 50 million in sales very quickly in the United States, and it's becoming like a favorite of many people who are into alternative milk products. So let's listen to it for just a moment. Okay.
If you live in the United States, then you know that in the last year or two, the oat milk brand Oatly has blown up. And the crazy thing is that oat milk has been around since the 1990s, and it was only in 2016 that the Swedish-based manufacturer of Oatly decided to enter the US market, which makes sense because there's a clear demand for alternative milk. I personally religiously order almond milk myself, so I understand, what's happening there. But the interesting thing is that how they went about, penetrating the US market from a marketing perspective. Now, there was two distinctive parts of their strategy, and that's what I want to share with you guys in this video, because that helped them explode from 1.5 million in sales to $15 million in just 2 years. So what they did to enter the market is that they tapped into influencers in the sense of baristas. They went to coffee shops and they presented their alternative milk to these baristas because it had a neutral flavor when making lattes, and they understood that they were the gatekeepers for alternative milk to introduce it to potential consumers. Because if you yourself walked into a Starbucks or a Blue Bottle and a barista said, hey, would you like to try oat milk? And you never even heard of oat milk, you'd probably say, sure. Not everyone would necessarily try it, but a good majority would be, willing and open enough to try oat milk to then be surprised by the amazing taste and how well it blends with a latte. And then in little to no time, they'll find themselves at a Whole Foods or at a Trader Joe's potentially looking for oat milk, maybe even that specific brand, which is Oatly in this scenario. And I think that really speaks to the effectiveness of influencer advertising and campaigns that are top funnel awareness, where you're trying to introduce something new because you can levitate to that gravitas of trust that an influencer, someone that you trust, brings to this situation. In this particular case, it being oat milk. But also the thing that they did was that they slowly started to introduce this to selective grocery stores. So it wasn't rolled out mass market in the beginning. Now it's that Oatly is expanding to over 5,000 different convenience stores, but they clearly started with the important people in the process, which was your coffee and what could make it taste better.
That was interesting, right?
Yes, definitely.
Well, I think that since we're talking about milk, we really need to talk about its problems. We've talked about it before, but let's focus in on it. And I'm looking at a fact sheet from Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And this is a really serious indictment of claims about milk. And I think we've discussed them before, but I'd like to bring up some of this and perhaps you could amplify what I'm talking about. Is that all right?
Sure.
Now, as we talked about a lot, calcium is considered, that's where milk helps us. I knew when I was growing up, that was the big thing. We got to keep our bones strong. And milk has a lot of calcium. And I guess it does have a lot of calcium in a certain way. But unfortunately, maybe the calcium can't be processed properly to get to the bones. Is that correct?
Yeah, one issue is the intake of calcium. The other one is the absorption of calcium.
Right.
And that's where milk falls short.
And it fell short when we grew up, right? I mean, right. It was never strong. But the American Dairy Association said, hey, you better drink your milk. And I remember drinking milk, and I remember the difference when I would drink milk, regularly. And later on, I started to drink juices, like raw juices. And I could feel it. I never felt anything particularly from milk. I mean, it was satisfying in a certain way, particularly if it was chocolate milk. But it never seemed to have any kind of kick, in a positive way. But I never paid any attention to it.
Well, before we continue to beat up on milk, let's just talk about good things about milk. So There's a whole lot of people love milk, including you and I, because we love ice cream. Who doesn't love ice cream? It's such a great treat.
Uh-huh.
And so it's not that we're blind to the positive sides of milk. Number one, it's great, it's tasty, it's very social. Number two, it is a fairly complete food in that it has sugars, proteins, a lot of micronutrients. And so, yes, if you're starving, for heaven's sakes, yes, drink the milk, especially if everything else is garbage and sugar. That might be the only good nutrients you're getting. Okay, so no question about that. And the problem is, number one, poor absorption of some nutrients in the gut. Because of milk's acidity, it kind of counteracts the absorption of calcium. That is why you correctly point out that calcium or milk does not strengthen your bones. It does not. It has been shown over and over and over again. I'll never forget the article in the journal Pediatrics, the March issue 2005. It was shocking. A review of over 50 studies, we call them a meta study. It showed no association with stronger bones in milk, which we should have been aware of because every other country has stronger bones and they don't drink milk as much, at least. But anyway, people were so shocked, a TV channel took to the streets downtown Salt Lake to interview people, mostly young women with children, and they would plant that mic in their faces and quote the study. Every one of those women said, I don't care, I will continue to give my child milk. Because we're so brainwashed, I should say whitewashed.
Milk-washed.
Milk-washed.
Well, to support what you were saying about that review of all these studies, there was a review, and this may be the same thing, that was published in Pediatrics, the journal, showing that milk does not improve bone strength in children. And then there was another study where researchers tracked the diets, exercise, and stress fracture rates of young girls for 7 years and concluded that dairy products and calcium do not prevent stress fractures in adolescent girls. So there's another sort of claim about the value of milk for bone health being challenged.
That's the British Medical Journal 2014, page G6015, showing you that not only women and men had more fractures, but a higher mortality rate.
Oh, really?
How about that?
Yeah, another thing that's really interesting, and we're going to have to go to a break soon, but is that they basically add vitamin D to milk. it doesn't really seem that has much to do with, I mean, it's like vitamin D is a complement to the calcium, which isn't absorbed anyway. And what do you think about, why do they do this vitamin D? Why do they always put vitamin D in milk?
Well, that's a big trend in big food. You know, they like to add tiny amounts just for marketing to their foods. And then they claim, oh, it's fortified. But, you know, you can add anything you want. The problem is absorption. And like I said, the acidity of milk curtails the absorption of a whole lot of micronutrients and minerals. Further, we've talked about this ad nauseum. The microbiome does not do well with milk. And so if you're messing with your microbiome, you can see a connection to a whole lot of problems.
Yeah, that's important.
And look, the bottom line, why do we love milk? Let's just be honest. Is the sugar. Lactose is a sugar. That is why we crave it. And the microbiome, the bad guys in the microbiome that trigger a lot of inflammation and a lot of other problems, love lactose.
Well, when I was cured of asthma, which we've discussed, there were two things that I had to give up for a year before I got better, really better, which was milk and sugar. And of course, the milk had a form of sugar too.
Right.
And it just was amazing. Actually, although it took me a year to get over it, where I could eat fairly normally, it took only 3 or 4 days before I stopped coughing and having the basic terrible effects of what I was going through. So it was amazing to me that nutrition could actually work so fast on something that I was told was a chronic and inevitable part of my life for the rest of my life, which it wasn't. So we're going to take a break now, and we will go back to our discussion of milk and the alternatives to milk.
Michael Martin, I don't even exist in your eyes, because all you see is a person's outside. Well, I'm a beautiful person inside, and I'm drinking milk. Do you know what that means? I'm growing fast in these years.
The milk's given me a lot of what I need for strong bones, beautiful skin, and a great smile.
And by the time my outside catches up with my inside, I'll have long since outgrown you.
And you'll be history.
Milk. It does a body good.
This is Johnny Bluestar, CEO of New Galaxy Enterprises, a media content development company. The original productions by Amazon, Hulu, and Netflix in particular has opened up a new and powerful form of television that has both global income and still unexplored profit potential as convergence between offline and online media continues to blossom. We can help persons needing creative help to turn their ideas for television pilots into actionable, marketable scripts. There's probably nothing more exciting in the field of entertainment than these new vistas online, as that capacity crosses more and more to the big screen, and the opportunities for instantaneous online projections of any type of media in that perennially popular venue. To learn more about New Galaxy, see samples of our work, or talk to us about your project, please go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com and fill out the contact form.
Boots in Manhattan is a coming-of-age novel by Ray Boylan and Johnny Bluestar. It is about a young Tom Boots Raymond who grows up in New York in the 1940s, who was a member of a street gang.
My friends and I were about to start our own game of stickball when Rabbit Lacey, the head of the Rattlers, came up to us and tried to move in on our game. We were called dwarves, the youngest members of the stupid gang.
Hey, Kevin, I need you to get some gloves and some stuff I left at my place.
No, this is our game.
Hey, are you my good little dwarf or what?
You've been calling me a dwarf since I was 6. We're not your personal slaves, pal.
Hey, what is this? A dwarf rebellion? All right, big guy, we ditched the dwarf thing. We make you guys regular rattlers.
No, it's too late.
He looked at Jay and me. We looked away. Rabbit was now angry, and he pushed Kevin hard with the palms of his hands. Kevin tried to ram him in the stomach, but he stepped aside, throwing Kevin into the curb where he fell to the ground, bleeding profusely at the knee. Still, he managed to get up.
My street.
Kevin shouted at Rabbit, pointing at him with an angry index finger.
Find out more by Googling Boots in Manhattan, a 1940s coming-of-age novel, part 1 of the novel series The Foot Soldier by Ray Boylan and Johnny Bluestar. Google with the words Boots in Manhattan, Ray Johnny Kindle. That's Boots in Manhattan, Ray Johnny Kindle.
We're back discussing in more depth than normally one of our favorite subjects to talk about, which is the problems with milk. And we had just talked about how, like the supplements like vitamin D, they're a kind of fortification, but they really maybe put there, as you were saying, doctor, for marketing purposes. And there's other ways to get vitamin D, like go out and get some sunshine. And you can get supplements fairly easily, but milk is not really containing enough vitamin D to really help, is it?
No, nor does it combine well with calcium on account of that absorption issue we talked about.
So here we have a situation where marketing has really co-opted reality for many, many people for so many years that these people you were talking about who were being interviewed wouldn't give it up even though they knew the facts. And that's when people give up things and don't do things because they ignore fact, there's a problem. And we won't discuss the political ramifications of that problem in this country right now because people really don't pay much attention to the problems that they see right in front of them in other ways. But so another way I hear to increase, bone density is actually exercise. Is that not true?
Exactly. And believe it or not, eating veggies. But by doing that, you improve your intestinal profile to where you absorb the calcium that's already there in other foods. Believe it or not, beans, soy, legumes have more calcium than milk, but we don't hear about that.
No, we don't. We don't have the National American Soybean Association talking to us.
Right.
But who knows? Of course, there's a little problem with China now, and maybe when that's over with, we'll be able to hear from them. But, okay, so now we're going to talk about fat content and heart disease, and I'm afraid I'm going to bring up one of your favorite dishes, which is ice cream, because dairy products, including cheese, ice cream, milk, butter, and yogurt, contribute significant amounts of cholesterol and saturated fat to the diet, as I'm quoting from this fact sheet from the Committee for Responsible Medicine. So we have a problem with saturated fat and heart disease, do we not?
We sure do. We sure do. And that reminds me, the news yesterday had a great article on how bypass surgeries and stents are being overdone.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, that taking the statin drugs could be just as well. I wish you had taken it a step further and said, you don't need the statins if you're going to eat real well. But no, we stopped short because that's where the money is.
That's where the marketing effect of some of this so-called objective research is too, right?
Well, if you watch national TVs in particular, their commercials are like fourth on statin drugs. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them.
Yeah. Well, again, to this particular fact-based sheet is saying, on the other hand, a low-fat, plant-based diet, which eliminates dairy products in combination with exercise, smoking cessation, and stress management, may not only prevent heart disease, but even reverse it, right?
Exactly. That's the other point that the report didn't cover at all. You can reverse clogging up the arteries. Dr. Ornish proved that. And we talked about Dr. Ornish, how with a good vegetarian diet and all these other good things we talked about, we're able to unclog people's coronaries.
I think that Dr. Ornish probably got more than the usual amount of publicity for his discoveries and his proof of that point, right?
Well, relatively speaking, maybe a flash in the pan, and then it died down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, talk about Cassandra, the mythology, the Greek mythology of the goddess who goes around telling the truth, but nobody listens.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit about IGF-1. What is that?
That's another way of saying growth hormone. And
okay.
That's a basic problem with, I shouldn't say that. One of the problems with milk. We talked about the sugar in it, poor absorption. Here comes a growth hormone that they put in milk. Yes, they put growth hormone in cows to stimulate their growth, and they make more money, more production of milk, fatter cows. And so that is why kids who drink milk are slightly taller. But the payback is that at the end of their lives, they have more osteoporosis. Think of having stretched the bones a little bit too much.
I don't understand something. Is the IGF-1, the growth hormone, is that different for cows than it is for people?
Very good point. That's another big problem in that when people drink milk from another species, you're getting a foreign IGF-1 or foreign growth hormone, which will create havoc with your immune system. That's why there are so many inflammatory problems with milk. That is why there's more diabetes with milk, because it's the same problem with insulin. We're drinking cow's insulin. So when it comes in our bodies, we make antibodies to attack the slightly foreign insulin. And those antibodies that we create against cow's insulin will attack our own insulin, our own pancreas. And so that's why there's an association diabetes with milk, particularly type 1 diabetes or insulin dependent.
Well, I hear that studies in diverse populations have shown a strong, consistent link between IGF-1 in the blood and prostate cancer risk.
Exactly. So the North Carolina, Louisiana Prostate Cancer Project and many other studies, this was published in the Journal American Journal of Clinical Nutrition last year, page 799, there is more prostate cancer with milk and breast cancer as well, because you're drinking growth hormone, which can stimulate any potential early cancer cell. As you know, we always have cancer, right? It's just that our immune system is hopefully good enough to nip those bad guys in the bud. But when you're drinking milk, you're doing the opposite. You are stimulating the growth of those early cancer cells. So that's why you see more prostate cancer and breast cancer with milk.
This particular study is being cited by the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and it's saying that there's one study that showed that men with the highest levels of IGF-1 had more than 4 times the risk of prostate cancer compared with those who had the lowest levels. Tremendous difference, 400%.
Yes. Or there's another factor. By drinking milk, you're messing with your microbiome, which is there to help you detoxify a whole lot of chemicals in the environment. We dub them xenoestrogens or estrogen endocrine disruptors. And so if you're not detoxifying them and out of your body very well, they stick around longer to create hormonal issues and cancer issues like breast cancer and prostate cancer.
Well, here's another study. A study of 1,941 women found that women who consume the highest amounts of cheddar, American cheese, and cream cheeses had a 53% higher risk for breast cancer.
Well, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I know, but that's kind of targeting the cheese particularly, which is really a shame, because cheese is great. I love cheese, but I don't think I should eat too much of it.
No, but if you're going to eat it as a treat once in a while, I say make it fermented. Well, of course, all cheese is fermented. What I meant is aged. You got cheese, right? Aged. That's what they do in France. In France, they have over 400 kinds of cheeses, and they're named after the region they come from. But the French eat a lot of cheese on a daily basis, yet they don't have a higher rate of cancer because they age it. And to them, aging is like 10 years. You know what aging? Wow. You know what an American cheese can be labeled aged after how long, according to our regulations?
I don't know.
3 months. It's a joke.
I'm not really a very old cheese, but I don't make you feel that good.
Right. Anyway, so I'm not saying don't eat cheese, but if you're going to eat cheese, let it be aged. And you go to these fancy stores, they have these islands of cheese, and a little itty-bitty square, no bigger than a bar soap is like $15, which is too bad, but if you're going to eat cheese, eat that cheese.
Well, you were talking about lactose intolerance, and I just want to support one of the things that you said with some facts here. We were talking about how a lot of the American population is now becoming less white Caucasian, and other races and nationalities are getting involved. And it says lactose intolerance is common, affecting about 95% of Asian Americans, 74% of Native Americans, 70% of African Americans, 53% of Mexican Americans, and 15% of Caucasians. So that's kind of interesting too. And and also just to deal with for a second the symptoms of lactose intolerance or upset stomachs, diarrhea, and gas, occurring because these individuals lack the enzyme lactase, which is needed to digest the milk, sugar, lactose. So that's pretty serious stuff. And it's very uncomfortable to have those symptoms.
Right, and people get loose stools, if not diarrhea. It goes to show you how it interferes with absorption.
Now, we have talked a lot about the contaminants in milk, just to go over it real quick, because we were talking about the I don't know how to pronounce this. I can't say it. It's a form of the bovine growth hormone, which is
recombinant.
Thank you very much. Is commonly given to cows to increase their milk production. That's what you were talking about.
But they also add antibiotics, because by limiting infections in crowded cows, you increase their production. Any infection can really curtail the production of milk. And so you fill these poor cows with antibiotics, which further disrupt their microbiome. And then a lot of pesticides. And so milk is a very, very processed food, if you will. And of course, eating unprocessed milk, a lot of people like to do that right from the cow that they grew themselves. Yes, that has a whole lot of advantages, but you're still drinking the foreign insulin, the growth hormone, and all those things. I hope at some point we cover some other problems with milk.
Well, go ahead, please.
Well, another one is Parkinson's disease, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, according to the journal Neurology, 2017, June 8th, and many other articles, Parkinson's disease has been associated with milk. And the key there, I already alluded to it, is pesticides. Milk has a lot of pesticides. I'm sure directly milk is not that good to the brain because of the higher inflammatory problems that milk generates. Here's an article from the journal Neurology, again, 2016, page 512, saying that the substantia nigra in the brain, an area of the brain we call the substantia nigra because it looks a little darker, is impacted negatively by milk. And of course, that's where you make dopamine. So if you follow that string of thought, you'll see that dopamine is produced in the substantia nigra, thereby corroborating what we said, that you see more Parkinson's disease with milk consumption. Here's an article from the journal National Cancer Institute saying that milk also increases the risk of endometrial cancer. Well, of course, the connection there is endocrine disruptors, the endocrine effect of milk. Well, that's some of the other problems. A big one is acne. Let's just get now to more common problems.
Acne?
Acne, yeah. And this is from the journal Skin and Allergy News, May 2008, page 9. Acne. You tell kids, teenagers to quit dairy, a lot of their acne improves, if not goes away. And again, that's because of the negative effect on the microbiome. Skin problems are a total reflection of what's going on in the gut. And then, perhaps the most common, the most insidious, and you brought it up yourself, is respiratory problems like asthma, ear infections, sore throats. You tell mommies to get their kids off milk, they stop, over half of them, stop having ear infections. Asthmatics, notorious improvement or obvious quick improvement when they quit drinking milk. One is the mechanics of milk. It makes you produce more mucus. Another one is the inflammatory problem with milk, which causes your eustachian tubes, the ventilation tubes in your head between the throat and the ears, to be gummed up, which leads to ear infections. And so here's an article on milk and ovarian cancer, a whole lot of allergies, types of allergies, autism and association with autism, a journal Applied Nutrition, 1990, and so on it goes.
Well, listen, we're going to have to come back to this, but I'm getting the impression that maybe milk isn't the universal panacea that we thought about when we were growing up. We'll be right back. We'll be right back.
Say, look at this. The story of Beulah and Beauregard's taster machine. And here's Beulah exclaiming, "It's done! The world's first taster machine!" And Elmer says, "A taster machine? What's it taste?" "Oh, all kinds of things," says Beauregard. "And if they're good, up pops the daisy." Then Elsie says, You don't need a taster machine to tell you how good Borden's milk tastes. Just try a glass and get that delicious taste yourself. Sure, cookies, sandwiches, cereals, all kinds of good foods taste even better. And they're more fun to have with fresh, sweet Borden's milk. Yes, when it's time to eat, or any time you're just plain thirsty. Remember, up pop the daisies every time with good Borden's milk.
Hey, Mom! Be sure to buy Borden! Buy Borden!
My company, New Galaxy Enterprises, is a California corporation specializing in the creation of media and promotional content. We are focused on original, innovative projects that are good for humanity. These projects could be nonfiction books or novels, fictional screenplays or documentary content, websites and website content, commercial advertising content for print, audio, or video products on the internet, television, or radio, musical scores for advertising, television, or film, video, audio editing, etc. We want to promote products and projects that support the environment, encourage a healthy experience in living, developing, nurturing, and useful technology, and offering platforms for positive, socially constructive entertainment or informative, transformative media. Our experience in creating a variety of products like this is rather vast, and we offer client-based and collaborative products, as well as the opportunity of active investors to join us in the creation and promotion of proprietary products, some of which are in latter stages of development. For more information, go to www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. That's www.newgalaxyenterprises.com. If you're interested in talking to us, just fill out the contact sheet and we will get back with you. If you're not fond of books, you may be interested in watching Dr. Rodier's slide presentation on his website, hugorodier.com. That's HUGORODIER.com. It lasts 48 minutes and explains the simple roots of all diseases with pictures and graphs that are easy to understand. The presentation includes basic principles of physics, philosophy, anthropology, and history to truly integrate the most vital pillars of human health.
So we're back with our discussion, which has been so far focused on milk, but I think that maybe we can jump to, if you don't mind, alternative milk products. And I think one of the most popular is almond milk. So
yes, I believe that's the best for you. The only problem is all the sugar they put in it. So if you're going to consume it, I say find the unsweetened milk. Yeah.
We even use unsweetened chocolate almond milk. I mean, they have so many different alternatives for milk products now. When I go to the Fresh Market, which is the name of our grocery store, there's like tons of brands of these things. And I haven't seen any Oatly recently, but Oatly is obviously becoming much more popular, which is an oat-based one. But we've discussed that a little bit, so we're focusing now on almond milk. What about the nutritional benefits of almond milk?
Well, almonds are so good for so many things. Lots of nutrients, essential fatty acids, micronutrients that have been shown to reduce the risk of cancer. Edgar Casey famously said that eating 4 almonds a day will reduce your risk of cancer. So that's why almond milk is my favorite milk alternative.
Well, it seems like it's pretty popular, and it's not the only one, but it is definitely one of the top ones.
Right. There's rice milk as well that does real well. There's soy milk, which is a bit controversial.
Well, let's talk about soy milk first.
Well, soy gets beat up a whole lot because of a false link with cancer. It's been put to bed. It's not true. And I guess it's worth repeating because people still have this misconception. I should say that soy is bad in that they use the fats from soy to create trans fats, artificial fats. But don't blame the soy for it. 2, soy has a lot of pesticides. Well, so do most of other crops, but don't blame the soy for that. And so if you're going to eat soy, I say eat it fermented for better absorption, digestion, and eat it organic. And I love those big blocks of tofu. It says organic right on it. I cut it up and throw it in my salads.
But what about soy milk? Can you get that organic?
Yeah, sure. So go for it. Now, let's just talk about why soy got such a bad rap.
Yeah, sure.
The doctor who figured out the micronutrients of soy decades ago dubbed some of them phytoestrogens. Phyto meaning plant. So plant estrogens. And since we've been vilifying estrogens, our own native estrogens, and link them correctly, link them to cancers, prostate and breast cancer, him calling these micronutrients phytoestrogens created a lot of problems which he himself regrets having started. Our native estrogens in our bodies, plant estrogens, are not the cause for prostate and breast cancer as the industry would like you to believe. This is a man behind the curtain, because the real problem are the xenoestrogens in the environment, not our native estrogens, not soy either. In fact, soy has been shown to reduce the risk of prostate and breast cancer and has nothing to do with thyroid problems. Thyroid problems are also environmental, mostly atomic radiation that we've been lied about. And so, you see, soy got vilified as an easy target. Then we can ignore all the environmental pollution. Further, a whole lot of these micronutrients like soy are what we call adaptogens, meaning they will do different things to you according to what kind of liver you have and what kind of gut bacteria. So I could eat the soy and I do real well. You could eat the soy and you don't do so well, nor do you notice any improvement, any salutary effects. It's because soy depends on what kind of gut bacteria you've got, as do most foods, if not all. So if you don't have the right gut bacteria when you eat soy, genistein and all that, all the micronutrients of soy, you will not transform the soy into equol, EQUOL. And that is the molecule that brings so many benefits to the human body. Look, all you have to do is go to Asia. They eat soy until it comes out of their ears. They do not have a higher rate of cancer or hormonal problems. In fact, they have less. So you should feel good about soy. The only thing, again, is make it as unsweetened as possible, organic as possible, fermented as possible.
So you would prefer tamari to soy sauce, right?
No, I like soy sauce, although
tamari is fermented soy sauce, I believe.
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, that would be great. Sorry. The thing about soy sauce is the MSG, right?
Yeah. So they're often adding it to it, right?
And they're changing the name of MSG, so they still sneak it in there under a whole lot of different names. I forget, but you can Google MSG names, other names. What
is the benefit, not the real benefit, but the impact of MSG?
Taste.
So it just makes it taste better.
Right.
All right. Well, we see that soy seems like a pretty credible possibility, but here's one that I think doesn't sound too good, which is rice milk.
Actually, I think rice milk is fine. What did you find?
Well, it has more sugar than even cow's milk.
Yes. Of course, yeah. We talked about the sugar issue, so if you find rice milk with less sugar, yeah, go for it. Again, my favorite is almond.
Well, rice milk is lactose free, but it is basically a sugary type of drink in itself, isn't it? Or am I wrong?
But this is good sugar. I mean, we know that rice is high in the glycemic index. So yes, it has more sugar, true. But this is good sugar. So whenever we talk about sugar, it's worth reiterating that we're not beating up on God-made sugar. We're beating up on man-made sugar.
Right. We're talking about something that's is feeding the liver, right?
Right. Sugar is processed in the liver, most fructose, I should say. Lactose is God-made. Of course, I get it. But it's been so adulterated, and we're drinking so much of it that in excess, even good sugars can be bad.
Let's go on to another interesting one, which is coconut milk.
Yeah, I think coconut milk is also a good alternative.
It has more. It kind of has a lot of saturated fat.
But that's okay. Look, it's not that we don't need saturated fats. It's we're eating too many and from animal sources. So if you get saturated fats from avocados, from nuts, that's fine. So I don't like to micromanage some of these things, because it creates a false impression that you've got to be watching so many things, so many balls up in the air. As long as you eat natural fats and sugars and proteins, not animal protein, you're good, so best to simplify things.
Well, another thing it says about to support you, I believe, that coconut fats have lauric acid, which contributes mostly in raising the levels of HDI cholesterol that aids in reducing the LDL cholesterol levels in the bloodstream, which is the sort of so-called bad cholesterol.
Right, you meant HDL.
I thought I said that.
Oh, I thought
it raises the levels of HDL cholesterol that aids in reducing the LDL.
Okay.
Okay, so now, we're this is kind of a good milk product too, alternative milk product. So, what I'd like to do now is I would like to play something, because we're always talking about the microbiome, and this is something from ABC News. It's from a video entitled "Doctors Say a Fecal Transplant Saved a Dying Woman's Life." Let's listen to it.
Tonight, a woman is crediting an uncommon procedure with saving her life. To Ellen Blackwell, it's a medical breakthrough. But the procedure that cured what ails her may leave some feeling squeamish. Our Linda Hurtado is taking action for your help and reveals how someone else's bodily waste actually saved this woman's life.
Poop. It's a stinky subject. We flush it down the toilet without thinking twice. But what actually comes out the other end is no stinking matter.
These bacteria do wonderful things.
Things that can cure our bodies from superbugs. There are hundreds of different kinds of good bacteria in our bowel. The same type of bacteria, or probiotics, you find in yogurt. But would you be willing to take someone else's human waste and put it in your body? For Ellen Blackwell, it was a no-brainer.
It saved my life. I was dying.
Ellen was so sick she couldn't eat for almost a year. All she could stomach were crackers and water.
I didn't have any appetite.
Ellen had a life-threatening form of bacteria called C. difficile, which doctors say is resistant to most antibiotics.
I was taking $7,000 a month in antibiotics. I wasn't able to eat at all. I lost a significant amount of weight. I was very, very sick.
There is a group of patients where really nothing works. And these patients have diarrhea, which is absolutely relentless.
Treatment options are slim. Either remove your colon or risk death. But Dr. Sudhir Duda at Sinai Hospital in Baltimore was willing to try something radical. Something that's never been done before at his hospital. A fecal transplant.
Dealing with stool has never been a pleasant thing. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to look at it.
But results can be life-saving.
It really makes a difference in the lives of these patients.
The only thing Ellen needed was a donor.
People who can donate the stool sample are generally children or spouses.
That's where Catherine, Ellen's daughter, stepped in.
Everything was dependent on when I could show up to the hospital with the sample, so I just brought it down to the lab.
All that was needed in the lab to prepare the sample was a simple kitchen appliance.
We blended it in a blender that was purchased from Target.
The stool was then poured through coffee filters to purify it so only the good bacteria would be transplanted.
It's poop, and it smells like poop, and then you figure you're actually introducing it into the patient. So we had to go through the mouth and put it in the top of the small intestines, and then had to go through the colon and run it through the whole colon.
For Ellen, it was well worth it.
I wanted to eat food within 24 hours. I felt normal.
Catherine is just happy to spend time in the kitchen with her mom and enjoy meals together.
The procedure is pretty common in Canada and Europe, but not yet here in the United States because it hasn't gone through rigorous medical testing. Tampa Dr. Patrick Brady with USF and Tampa General Hospital says a fecal transplant took place in our area a few years ago, but it's not done as often because treatment with antibiotics usually works, and there are potential side effects such as the potential to transmit disease.
Okay, now, so what do you think, Doctor?
Well, I was glad to see the report. what I didn't like is that they minimized the impact of a stool transplant. I mean, this woman was dying, nothing was working, antibiotics were not working. Well, Johnny, shouldn't that have been a clue that her immune system was really messed up?
Yeah.
And so waiting so long to give the stool transplant to the woman, which is in essence was a shot in the arm to the immune system, and then to minimize the impact of the microbiome, the reporter just brushed through it without talking about this is the immune system we're talking about. And so on the one hand, I thought it was a great report. On the other, it should have been done better.
You know, in looking at the YouTubes on this subject, because I was looking for different things on the fecal transplants, it's been being done for a while, hasn't it? I mean, maybe it's beginning to grow in understanding and popularity, but it's not totally brand new.
No, I've been doing it for quite a long time, and I teach people how to do it in my office. All they have to do is find a healthy donor. Clinics are springing up where they charge you a lot of money for doing it there. They find the donor and all that. And in fact, the FDA had to crack down on these clinics because they were doing it correctly, in my opinion, for just about every disease. Because by fixing the microbiome, you fix a whole lot of problems. You fix the immune system to begin with and your metabolism. And so now they crack down on these profit clinics. You know, they were ripping people off, charging too much. And now they only have it approved for the treatment of C. difficile, superbacteria that poor woman had in the report. So the pendulum keeps swinging. And of course, follow the money, you'll know where it ends up. And again, I teach my patients to do it on their own if they find a good donor.
Well, if you do this and you feel better, you still have to really look at your diet. I mean, you can't
exactly.
You can't just if you just transplant it and it works for a little while, and then you start going back to the old habits, it ain't going to help too much, right?
Exactly. You go back to square one because you keep feeding the bad guys, which are always there. We all have bad guys, always will. The niche is the answer is to strengthen the good guys, which will become weaker again, and the bad guy stronger if you start to feed them a lot of sugar and take antibiotics and pesticides and whatnot.
Well, listen, we've had a pretty interesting discussion on milk products and now on the microbiome, which is, I think that people will be hardened to actually know I see a good example of someone who was really saved from a tremendous problem. Regardless of the reporting of it, it's still a fact that her life was saved. So I'll looking forward to next week.
Okay, Johnny. Talk to you then.
I'll see you. Bye-bye.
The Coalition is a unique project designed to empower its members both individually and collectively. Besides individual empowerment, its broader focus is on the restoration, protection, and enhancement of citizen and human rights throughout the world through the aid of its members. As this project is centered in the United States, our first task is to create a website and social network infrastructure to promote collective efforts to take back our rightful control as citizens over our government as designed by our founding fathers. Although we must begin with the social network restricted to United States citizens, the organization will also host a global dialogue for the discussion of human rights by citizens of democratic nations throughout the world. If you're interested, please check us out in the GoFundMe.com website, entering in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. That is, go to GoFundMe.com and enter in the search field the Coalition for Planetary Empowerment. For more information about Dr. Rodier's practice, books, blogs, and newsletters, contact Hugo Rodier, MD, at www.hugorodier.com. That's HUGORODIER.com.
Michael Martin, I don't even exist in your eyes, because all you see is a person's outside. Well, I'm a beautiful person inside, and I'm drinking milk. Do you know what that means? I'm growing fast in these years.
The milk's given me a lot of what I need for strong bones, beautiful skin, and a great smile.
And by the time my outside catches up with my inside, I'll have long since outgrown you.
And you'll be history.
Milk. It does a body good.